Hello, Dr. A and classmates. This is Rick Hall, my EDL 854 Module 3 Activity Fund Safeguards presentation. The overview for this assignment was to look at the Kansas guidelines for managing activity funds, also at the lesson information, and look at what's going on in my own district and compare those. We're going to look at 6 different areas: guidelines for spending activity funds, characteristics of sound internal control, 3 types of internal control, basic controls of school accounting system, controls for cash receipts, and controls for cash disbursements. In the guidelines for spending activity funds section, the list on the left was what was on the Kansas guidelines. The list in the middle were the funds, the guidelines for the funds from the textbook. And then on the right was what we have here at USD 218 and Elkhart. The information that was supplied at Elkhart is very basic. It was only about a page and a half. Pretty normal stuff compared to the other guidelines. The one thing that I did find in our guideline that really is not done all the time is that activity fund expenditure needs to be approved by the principal. Normally that doesn't happen as long as there are receipts provided. Even when a large purchase was made, the principal need to sign off on it only when the PO process was used. I had the opportunity to be the juniors class sponsor this year, so I've done both, and I'll talk about that later. Number 2, characteristics of a sound internal control system. There's 4 considerations for internal controls. Reasonableness. Are you going to spend $30,000 for a bookkeeper that oversees $5,000? The time that is used to oversee an activity fund. And then public opinion. You need to use the funds that you raise for the people that raised it, and also do you do things for the community or for your teachers? Those are all things you have to consider. Timeliness, again, if you put in a system that requires 2 full-time bookkeepers and you're only looking over $5,000 or $10,000, is it really timely? Reality, I like this quote by Ayn Rand: we can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. You got to look at things from a common sense point of view and decide if your controls are really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And also commitment to do the right thing. I can't imagine not doing the right thing with other people's money, because that's what it is. It's other people's money, especially those activity funds where the kids have worked hard to raise money for what they want to use it for. Abusing activity funds would just be unbelievable for me. So do the right thing. 3 types of internal controls. You have preventative internal controls that they prevent problems before they ever occur, like segregation of duties, computer system that controls POs, different things like that. There's detective internal controls. You identify problems after they've already occurred and you make adjustments. An example would be reviewing the monthly financials by a person that did not prepare the bookkeeping, looking over your bank statements, making sure everything was deposited the way they were supposed to do. And then the final one is corrective security control. Things have gone wrong. You've identified the problem and then you need to make changes. So that's the 3rd type. Basic controls for school accounting. There's 3 areas of basic control. The environment. You have to maintain high standards. Keep your staff accountable. You have to have competent people working with those funds, and then control the bookkeeping staff with access and duties. I think access and duties is probably the easiest way to control your staff. Administrative controls. You review your monthly statements. You reconcile your accounts. You separate financial duties. You conduct financial audits, and you have strict control of financial forms. Limit access to the financial systems. I think on this one, the biggest one is restrict access to keys and combinations. When I was in the military, We had a safe that had the firing codes for nuclear weapons, and it had two combinations, and no one person knew both combinations. So that was a type of a control I think is very effective. Three considerations for cash: preparing your deposits. Make sure that the people who take in the money probably shouldn't be the people that are depositing the money. Keep control of your deposit slips and make audits and make sure that what's being deposited is actually going in the bank. Making your deposits, all your cash receipts. Don't hold back any cash for other things. Provide security measures for people who are taking the deposits. I know in a small town like Elkhart, we really don't have that concern, but in the big city, if a person's going to the bank with $2,000 or $3,000, they need to have security or support to make sure they're okay. Review your deposits that were made to the bank. Make sure, again, that the deposit that was made was actually put in there. And then giving receipts. You need to encourage your parents and students and teachers and activity fund leaders to give receipts so that there's a money trail. So you can always look back and go make sure that your cash is being taken care of properly. The final control is to issue checks and purchase orders. When you're issuing checks, always pay by check. No cash payments with checks. And what that means is you don't write a check out and say cash on it so somebody can go cash it. Use pre-numbered checks in sequence. You require 2 signatures. Never sign a blank check. Use heavy dark ink so it can't be you need to use heavy dark ink so it can't be erased and different amounts put in. Write void on checks that are voided. Restrict access to unused checks. And also never write school checks for personal expenses. Oh my gosh, that's such a red flag. All right, PO orders, issuing purchase orders, always follow your district guidelines. POs must be approved, normally by the principal, and use a computerized system to keep track of POs. And don't prepay vendors with a credit card or check and then go back and write a PO. So here at USD 218 in Elkhart, I think they do a really good job of controlling funds. I'll give you an example. My wife and I are the sponsors for the junior class, and we had the responsibility for doing concessions for home football games. And when we were done with those evenings, I would have a cash bag of almost $2,000 in cash. I would immediately, first of all, they had 2 people other than my wife and I to count the cash. They signed the paperwork for it, and then they took the cash and gave it to me, and I looked over it, and then I gave it to our superintendent, who deposited it that night. So I knew when I came in on Monday that the funds were going to be there. I'm also, because of the junior class sponsor, we're responsible for prom. So we've raised a little over $10,000 for prom in April, and we're having to start buying decorations and those kind of things for prom. So what'll happen, and it's kind of like what happens, it's different than when it was during the concession stand, because during the concession stand I would go to Sam's or Walmart and buy the materials for the night's at concession stand, and then I would turn in the receipts to the secretary, and she would write me a check out of the fund, but I would have to create a PO and put all the receipts and everything into the PO. She would write a check that day. Now the difference with buying materials for the prom is that I have to write up a PO, and we send it to the principal, and he approves it, and then they write a check to the vendor. So there is a little bit of a difference in the path. So it's been a good experience for me this year, learning how to handle those funds in activity fund. And again, based on what I read in the book, it's just common sense stuff. You want to protect yourself. You want to protect the district. You want to protect the students' interest in the fund money. So just do the right thing at all times. Thank you.